Hi, sorry, I have a lollipop. Hi guys, hi. This is All in Economic Lifestyle. I hope that you guys had a great day today, seriously, and I hope that you've had something to eat and that you've kept well hydrated. Okay, and pace yourself. Don't be in such a hurry, but don't move too slow. Guys, I wanted to share this with you, and there's a disclaimer on this. It's for educational purposes only because it's going to shock you. It's okay, is all I got to say. Because one thing about it is if you're not very, if you don't have the experience of the inside to see how the inside sectors work, you're not going to know of these things. We only think one way. Like as Nell says, cartels are not the only, no, cartels are not only on the border. And this is true, guys. Anywhere where there's lots of movement and traffic, colleges, schools, just things like that. So because you can fit in, you have to think like a criminal in order to catch a criminal. Disclaimer, I'm just saying. So if you want to know why ICE is on the ground in all these different places, it's leading back to the cartel and kids. So what I want you to do is pay attention and take note. This happened in the state of Georgia. Georgia does not have a border. Right? Right. So okay guys, I want you guys to really get this. As you come into the room, please subscribe, and I'm gonna hit the let me give a disclaimer really fast, guys, okay? Bear with me one moment though. There's a disclaimer right here, okay?
The
So
U.S.
let's
Attorney's
continue.
Office today announced a major drug bust here in Georgia. They say potentially saved millions of lives.
Alan, the DEA says a seizure of this magnitude usually only happens at the U.S. border of Mexico.
I
Hundreds of
just
thousands
said
of
that.
illegal pills and dozens of guns.
Be at the border, but it's not always the case, guys.
In Jefferson, Georgia, long before sunrise, when the low growl of heavy
This happened 5 days
shattered
ago.
the silence of an ordinary suburban street. Most residents were still asleep, unaware that their quiet neighborhood had just become the front line of a federal operation that had been months in the making. Within seconds,
this is cartels in Georgia, guys. Cartels are not only at the border. So if you want to know more, pay attention. Please subscribe as you come in.
Flickered on.
This happened 5 days ago.
Yet no one outside truly understood what was unfolding. Armored Bearcat vehicles surged forward and locked the street down from both ends, trapping the neighborhood inside a scene that felt closer to a war zone than a small Georgia town. Red and blue lights
in a small Georgia town, guys.
Federal tactical teams,
the cartels,
smoke, shouting commands with calm authority. This was not a rushed reaction or a
Hi,
random
Marcel.
raid. Every movement
Hi,
was
Everett.
deliberate, rehearsed, and timed down to the second.
Hi, guys.
Inside, agents were not just looking for drugs.
Please subscribe as you guys come in, okay?
Far more dangerous. Federal charging documents later confirmed that this house functioned as a cartel logistics hub.
Oh my
stocked with
goodness.
fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine,
This is
large sums of cash, and a working military-style grenade launcher. A weapon rarely seen outside conflict zones.
Oh my
According
goodness.
to statements released by the U.S. Department of Justice, the seizure was part of a coordinated takedown that would ultimately span multiple cities and involve more than a dozen federal
Hi,
agencies.
Kathleen.
This was the opening strike of Operation Take Back America, a federal campaign aimed at dismantling transnational criminal networks that had quietly embedded themselves inside U.S. communities.
Educational purposes only, guys.
Part. No one living on that street knew what was happening next door until federal agents forced their way inside.
Okay, wait one second, guys. See, know your neighbors, guys. You never know what's going on from door to door. I know all of my neighbors on my street, and everybody's either law enforcement or military, okay? So that's a good thing, but still, know who your neighbors are. Let's continue.
Warfare only happens at the border. Stay with us. What investigators uncovered inside this house changes how this entire operation must be understood, and the deeper story begins right now. Long before armored vehicles rolled into Jefferson, Georgia had already caught the attention of federal investigators for a very different reason.
Wow.
On the surface, places like Jefferson, Athens, and Atlanta looked like the safest possible locations for a criminal network to hide. College towns, quiet suburbs, steady traffic, and constant movement created the perfect
Thank you,
cover.
Marcel. Always.
Students came and went.
Always. Thank
Rentals
you.
changed hands every semester. Delivery vehicles blended into the background. Nothing stayed still long enough to raise alarms, and that was exactly the point.
Wow.
At the same time, hospitals and law enforcement agencies across Georgia began reporting a disturbing pattern. Overdose cases linked to fentanyl were rising sharply.
I just want to put this on pause for a sec, guys. I'm not into drugs or anything like that, and but I lost my best friend. He was from Hawaii, Kakalea. I'll just call his last name, and he died of a fentanyl overdose in Arizona. I got him out of Florida. I had to locate his sister and his brothers because his mom, she's located in Hawaii. True story, guys. And he was having issues here in Florida, so I remember his family's name. Of course, we've been best friends over 20 years. He's Hawaiian. He had a great job at the hospital. He served in the military. I got him out of Florida and got him over to Arizona where his sister lives. And he did good, but I was so scared, guys, because it's so near the border, and I don't want to start crying because he lasted for 8 months over in Hawaii, right, guys? And then he bought a bad bag of fentanyl and he died. I'm sorry, but anyways, so I just want to share this so you guys can keep an eye out on your loved ones, and just make sure they're not doing anything they're not supposed to be doing. And then some of them are hard-headed, so if they're gonna do it anyways, you have to tell them if you're gonna do something, you know, at least my thing of it is I don't condone it, but I'll tell you to get what you're gonna get. Just come home and stay in the garage. I don't want to see it, but I'd rather do that than have them out in the street. So I do apologize, but I get emotional when I talk about my best friend. I miss him, and it hasn't been over 2 years that he's been gone because of drugs over fentanyl. So just be careful, okay? So let's continue. Please subscribe as you come in.
But many victims insisted they had taken what they believed
This
were
is a drug
ordinary
bust. The
prescription
cartels
pills.
in Georgia, guys.
According to data
I know this
later
is
referenced
weird.
by
Who would
federal
have ever thought the
prosecutors,
cartels would set up
investigators
shop in
identified a growing
Georgia,
wave of
where
counterfeit
there's no
tablets,
border?
pressed to look like common painkillers, but laced with fentanyl in unpredictable doses. Similar warnings had already been issued nationwide by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which confirmed that fentanyl had become the leading cause of overdose deaths among young Americans. Georgia was no exception.
Wow.
It was becoming a testing ground.
Testing
Behind the
ground.
scenes, financial analysts working with federal task forces noticed something else. Small businesses with little visible activity were moving large sums of money. Wire transfers bounced between Georgia, Texas, California, and offshore accounts.
Okay, Georgia, Texas, and offshore accounts in California. Take note, guys. Let's continue.
With no clear commercial explanation.
Hi,
Numbers were not
Sebastian.
massive
Yeah,
enough
this
to
is
trigger
really
instant
deep.
alarms, but they were
This
consistent,
is really deep.
disciplined, and recurring.
It's out of control.
According to federal court filings, this was the first real indicator that the operation was not local and not random. It was organized. As the pick sharpened, one connection appeared again and again. Investigators traced communication patterns, cash movements, and supply routes back to intermediaries tied to the Sinaloa cartel.
Wow, I want to pause this for a sec, guys. You see how they strategize and then they strategically plan it and then they all work together and this is what forms a cartel, guys. Cartels are really real, but this is shocking to me that it happened in Georgia. This bust happened 5 days ago, guys. So there's a lot going on the ground, and our government are working. The good ones are working, okay? Don't underestimate the military, our government. Let us continue.
This was not a street gang improvising for profit. It was a structured logistics cell operating hundreds of miles from the border, using Georgia as a distribution bridge between southern ports, interstate highways, and dense population centers. Federal authorities would later confirm that the group functioned more like a supply unit than a loose criminal crew, with clear roles, discipline, and centralized coordination. From a U.S. perspective, that distinction mattered. Officials from agencies like the FBI and ICE began framing the threat in sharper terms. This was no
Educational
longer about
purposes only,
individual arrests
guys.
or isolated seizures. It was
Be
about a
aware of
foreign
your
criminal
surroundings,
organization
your
embedding itself
neighbors,
inside American communities,
your
exploiting
children's
trust,
school, the teachers,
infrastructure, and
etc.
anonymity to move poison at scale. The language shifted
Even
quietly
within family.
but decisively. What was unfolding was a form of logistics warfare designed to overwhelm systems without firing a single shot. Yet even with
Yes,
months
Sebastian,
of
this
surveillance,
is
wire
cray-cray.
analysis, and informant work, investigators underestimated what they were about to find. They expected drugs. They expected money. What they did not fully anticipate was the level of militarization waiting behind suburban walls. As the operation moved toward execution, one thing became clear inside federal command rooms. The evidence about to be uncovered would push this case far beyond every scenario they had prepared for. Once the front door gave way, the tone of the operation changed instantly. Federal agents stepped into a space that no longer felt like a family home, but like an industrial room repurposed for something far darker. The air was thick with the sharp smell of chemicals mixed with gun oil, a combination agents are trained to recognize immediately. It was the kind of scent that suggested long hours of preparation, not short-term storage, and it told investigators they were standing inside an operation designed to function.
This is
not
insane.
hide.
Oh
Under the
my
harsh white
gee.
beam of tactical lights,
How
the
many
kitchen revealed
drugs
its
do you
true
need
purpose.
to bring into the
The
United
table was
States?
buried
Oh
beneath
my
tightly wrapped
goodness.
bricks of cocaine and methamphetamine, stacked with a level of care that hinted at inventory control rather than panic concealment. Nearby, loose fentanyl powder had spilled across the floor during the breach, its fine grains catching the light in a way that made even seasoned agents pause. According to federal...
Guys, I want to say this really quickly. A lot of people don't like dealing with this because they may have a friend, family member, or someone they know that uses drugs or are addicted. And it's easier not to deal with it than to deal with it. No, it's the other way around. It's easier to deal with it than to deal with an addict or a drug addiction person, whether it be family, friends, or even if it's your enemy. You don't want a person to be in that position. So do not make them feel any worse. Just be there for them as much as you can and lead them in the right guidance and let them make the choice from there. And after you've done all you can do, then you take your hands off of them. Okay, let's continue.
Federal reports later referenced by prosecutors, the quantity alone
I know, Sebastian. How
represented
much
a
do you
lethal risk
need?
on a massive scale,
This is
far beyond
insane.
what local distribution would require.
When you have people
As
out here
agents moved
hungry,
deeper into
but
the
you got all
houses,
these
the
drugs.
discovery grew more alarming. Plastic containers
People can
and
barely pay
sealed
their
bags
bills, but you
held
want to.
hundreds of thousands of
I
counterfeit
don't get it.
pills, pressed to look identical to legitimate prescription medications. These were not crude fakes. They carried familiar shapes, colors, and markings. The same details that public health officials have warned make fentanyl especially dangerous for unsuspecting users. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has repeatedly confirmed that counterfeit pills are one of the primary drivers
Yeah, but I know
of
people would
overdose
rather
deaths
have drugs
among
than to pay
younger
their bills
Americans.
and stuff
A
like
fact
that,
that gave this
respectfully,
room
but
an added sense of urgency
I
and
guess if we're
consequence.
not addicts, we won't
Then came the
understand
moment
it.
that shifted the case entirely. In a back room, agents uncovered an arsenal that no
Are those
suburban house
bullets?
should ever
Are you
contain.
serious?
26 firearms were laid out or hidden throughout the property, including multiple
Guys, this is a
AR-15
one
style
property.
rifles,
One,
handguns,
uno.
and tactical
One
gear.
property.
But it was what sat concealed beneath the workbench
Unbelievable.
that stopped the room cold. A functioning military-style
Oh, I
grenade
forgot
launcher,
we're dealing with the
its serial
cartels,
number
so it's
deliberately
believable.
ground away. A signature move associated with weapons diverted through international black
CDC.
markets. Court filings later
Wow.
confirmed that the weapon was operational, not decorative, a fact that raised immediate concerns about how close the situation had come to catastrophic violence. For
This is
investigators from the FBI
catastrophic.
and ICE, the erased serial numbers told a story of their own. This was not a random collection assembled by amateurs. It was a supply chain. Weapons moved quietly across borders, cleaned of
Educational
identifying
purposes
marks,
only,
and
guys.
placed exactly where they were
Cartels set
needed.
up shop in
When analysts
Georgia,
later compared the layout of the house
Jeffersonville,
to seized
Georgia.
communications, the pattern became unmistakable.
Yes, one
This
property,
location was
Sebastian.
designed to
That's why
arm,
I'm sitting here. My
supply,
eyes are like
and
this
protect
big
a
because they
distribution
said Uno
network
property,
tied
and
to the
all of
Sinaloa
this is
cartel.
on one property.
By the time the last room was cleared, one conclusion was unavoidable.
Wow, they said the
Stash
last
house
room.
meant to sit
Oh my
untouched. It was a
goodness.
fortified logistics node,
Let's see what's
a
in here,
forward
Sebastian.
operating base hidden in plain sight. The house had not been storing drugs for later pickup. It had been preparing for conflict. As agents secured the house, the next layer of the story began to surface. Not in gunfire or cash piles, but on the walls. Taped above work tables and door frames were hand-drawn maps tracing routes from northern Mexico through Texas and across the southeast, terminating in Georgia. Highways, rest stops, port access points, and secondary roads were marked with symbols only insiders would understand. For investigators, this was not decoration. It was a live blueprint of a supply chain that stretched thousands of miles, designed to move product quietly and consistently into American community.
Look how smart. Pardon me, guys. One moment. Look how smart these guys move. So they think, because they eventually get caught. But why can't they open up an investment firm or something like that if you're so good with numbers and you have all this money? Like I've always said that about any drug dealer, about any whatever. Why can't you use that to make legal money? Let us continue.
Scattered across rooms were small but telling details. Sticky notes covered with shorthand symbols. Notebooks filled with numbers that made no sense until analysts compared them with shipping dates and financial transfers. Burner phones sat charging in clusters, each one labeled or color-coded to indicate a specific role. According to federal
Look how
affidavits unsealed
organized.
after the raid,
Oh my
these phones were
G.
replaced constantly, sometimes weekly, to limit exposure and frustrate surveillance. What looked chaotic at first glance quickly revealed order. Every item had a purpose. Every person in the network had a defined task. That structure became even clearer as agents reconstructed how the group operated. Couriers moved product. Others handled storage. Separate individuals managed payments, while a smaller inner circle coordinated timing and security. Investigators later described the operation as functioning more like a logistics unit than a street-level gang.
Okay, see, that's what I was saying. That's the word I was trying to come up with, guys. Logistic. Because this is exactly what they're doing. I've worked corporate and federal, but this is logistics. Like, I don't even like numbers. I couldn't do this because I don't like numbers. So, but they can do this, but they're doing it in an illegal way. And now look what's happening. Like, this is from California, Texas to Georgia. Wow. Let's continue.
There was discipline, redundancy, and planning built into every layer. This was consistent with intelligence assessments long associated with the Sinaloa cartel, which U.S. authorities have...
And guys, this is why the cartel, ICE is on the ground. It's not a, trust me, guys. Only thing you got to do is just make it simple. Put the dots together and you come up with it. If it's put before you, just like me, even though I probably can get on the inside and know more than you guys, but still, it's all in your face. Just don't question it once you come up with the synopsis in your head. That's what it is. And but they are on the grounds working because of things like this. And the cartels are big with trafficking too, guys. The kids. Let us continue.
Repeatedly described as one of the most organized and adaptable criminal enterprises in the world. Money flow told the same story. Cash seized at the house was only a fraction of what had moved through the network. Federal financial records showed profits being washed through small local businesses that appeared legitimate on the
Look at all this,
surface,
guys.
alongside shell companies that existed only on paper. Digital transfers bounced through multiple states before landing in accounts tied to foreign intermediaries. According to public statements from the U.S. Department of Justice, this kind of layering is a classic tactic used to blur ownership and slow investigations.
Guys, pardon me one sec. I do have a degree in criminal justice. One thing about this too is that the worst mistake, which you cannot bypass, is the money trail. I don't care. You may get away with it for a week, a month, 2 years, 5 years, but the money trail will always catch up to you because it's data. Let's continue.
Buying time for networks to relocate and rebuild. From the perspective of agencies like the FBI and ICE, this is where the threat extends beyond drugs. What they were seeing was not just trafficking, but infiltration. The network exploited rental housing, small businesses, digital finance, and constant population movement to blend into everyday life. It relied on trust, routine, and the assumption that violence stayed somewhere else. That is why officials increasingly describe these operations as economic and social incursions, not simply criminal acts. As analysts pieced together messages recovered from phones and documents, a final realization set in. The Jefferson House was never meant to stand alone. It was one node in a wider system, designed to absorb losses and continue operating if another location fell. The raid had delivered a major blow,
you can see
but
that
it had
on
not
New Jack
dismantled
City.
the entire machine. For investigators, the evidence pointed in one clear direction. This operation was not the end of the story. It was a single strike against a network built to survive. As the first hint of daylight crept over Georgia, the operation expanded far beyond the quiet street in Jefferson. What had begun as a single breach was now unfolding as a synchronized federal strike. At precisely coordinated
Unbelievable.
times,
This is
teams
diabolical,
from
guys.
13 federal agencies moved at once, following a plan designed to deny the network its
This
greatest
is very
advantage:
diabolical.
communication. Doors were hit within minutes of each other across Athens, Atlanta, and Jefferson, leaving no window for
I've been
warning,
to all these
no
places,
chance
guys.
for couriers to
Athens
scatter,
is the
and no
outstretches of
opportunity for evidence to
Atlanta.
vanish.
And
From
if
the
you knew how
outside,
small the
the
town was,
locations
you
looked
wouldn't think that the
unremarkable.
cartels would even
Student
find them on the
rentals,
map.
modest houses,
That's why
and
I'm
low-profile
like,
properties tucked
wow.
into ordinary neighborhoods. Inside, however, the scale of the operation became impossible to ignore. According to information later released by federal prosecutors, agents seized hundreds of thousands of counterfeit pills, bulk quantities of fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamine.
Okay, guys, one
along with
moment, because I don't even know if I can finish this out. This is, it's scary because they're fake pills, and it's not fair that someone could get their hands on fake pills and they die from it. I don't know. It's just it's all for this right here. See this right here? Yeah, it's all for that, guys. Ah. Okay, let's continue. I wasn't for sure I was gonna go through the whole thing,
order,
but
every item had a purpose.
because I'm getting
Every
really pissed
person
off
in the
right now.
network had a defined
I don't like
task.
things like this.
That structure became even clearer as agents
It's very
reconstructed how the
contaminating
group
to our
operated.
communities,
Couriers
our
moved
states, and
product.
our counties.
Others handled storage. Separate individuals managed payments, while a smaller inner circle coordinated timing and security. Investigators later described the operation as functioning more like a logistics unit than a street-level gang. There was discipline, redundancy, and planning built into every layer. This was consistent with intelligence assessments long associated with the
Again,
Sinaloa
guys,
cartel,
these are cartels,
which
right?
U.S. authorities have repeatedly
So
described
that means
as one of the most organized and adaptable criminal enterprises in the world.
they're
Money
either
flow told the same
they're
story.
not from the mainland,
Cash
okay?
seized at the
So
house
this is why
was only
ICE
a
is on the
fraction of
ground
what had
too,
moved through the network. Federal
because
financial records
they're bringing
showed
it over
profits
into
being
our
washed through
country.
small local
That's why.
businesses that appeared
Respectfully, for
legitimate on
those
the
of you,
surface,
if
alongside
you're
shell
not doing
companies
it,
that
this is not
existed
for you. It's for
only
those
on
of
paper.
them that are.
Digital transfers bounced through multiple states before landing in accounts tied to
I
foreign.
think I hit this. Let me go back. Let me speed it up a little bit, guys, to see what's going to happen. Let's go back and see the mugshot.
For investigators, that pattern mattered.
Okay, guys, you
It
see
showed that
here?
this network was not built on desperation or chaos, but on experience,
I think I
replacement,
seen one
and continuity.
black guy
The
up
most
there.
alarming figure, however, was
It's
not the arrest
cartels.
count.
So I was wondering if the cartels work with
According
blacks.
to seizure data cited by federal prosecutors and public health officials, the amount recovered during the Georgia raids was enough to produce hundreds.
Yeah, Georgia, they like to use those
of
canine dogs,
potentially
guys.
lethal
We use them here too in
doses.
Florida.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has repeatedly warned that even a few milligrams of fentanyl can be fatal, which means every package seized
You hear
represented
that,
lives
guys?
that would never reach an emergency room.
Wow.
From a U.S. perspective, this transformed the case from a criminal matter into a public safety emergency with national implications.
Cray.
As analysts from the FBI and ICE reviewed the
It
evidence,
looked like they had the
a
pink
clearer strategic
Diddy
picture emerged.
Coco.
What they were confronting was not a single trafficking route, but a model. Cartels were building what investigators described as satellite bases, small but fortified logistics hubs placed far from the
Educational
border,
purposes only,
embedded
guys.
inside ordinary American neighborhoods. These locations allowed criminal organizations to store product, move money, and coordinate distribution without drawing attention, effectively shifting the battlefield inward. The presence of heavy weapons pushed that assessment even further.
Let's hold for a sec, guys. But honestly, this is why you guys got to ease up of the government, because they know what they're doing. They know these things behind the scene better than you or me. Okay. So they're just coming to collect. It's time to get this off the street and clean our states and cities back up so that the kids can be safe. I'm sorry. I'm all for that. I don't care what you do and how you do it, but when it starts affecting these things, then it's time for a cleanup. And this is what they're doing. Don't think that they're not working. Let us continue.
The recovery of assault rifles, tactical gear, and a functioning grenade launcher signaled a willingness to defend territory and assets with extreme force if necessary. Federal briefings later emphasized
I'm sorry,
that this
guys.
level
I'm just
of
sucking
armament
on
was
this
not about
lollipop.
intimidation alone.
Sorry.
It was about readiness. If confronted by rivals or law enforcement, these cells were prepared to escalate. That reality forced agencies to rethink assumptions about where cartel violence could appear and how quickly it could unfold. From Washington's point of view, this is why the language surrounding the case changed so sharply. Officials were careful to avoid dramatic rhetoric, yet the message was consistent. This was no longer just law enforcement responding to crime after the fact. It was domestic defense against a foreign criminal enterprise.
California, Texas to Georgia. I'm just speeding this up a little bit, guys. I think it's pretty much the same because
United States understands the threat. It is no longer seen solely as a law enforcement issue confined to borders or ports of entry. It is treated as a form of domestic defense against foreign criminal enterprises exploiting American infrastructure, communities, and financial systems.
Okay, now guys, did you hear that? Did you hear what they said? Foreigners that are destroying our infrastructure, community, our everything with these drugs, guys. This is what it's all about, okay? So keep an open mind because you have people to come up online and say, they're doing this, they're doing that. And I've always said those are the main ones that are doing something they have no business, and they were told to do that for a distraction so that it gives them time to get out of the country. If you study criminal law, you will begin to, the only way to catch a criminal is to think like a criminal. So in my criminal law classes, we were trained to do that. So I know them when I see them. So don't believe everything you hear or everything you see. Research it for yourself, okay? And please do take note of your surrounding, guys, and really have family meetings to talk about what will be an emergency in case something happens. Because if you have anything, not just the cartels, but they're the higher ones in power over gangs and American wannabe drug dealers, I would say. Um, so you don't want all out war to start in your neighborhood and things happen, okay? So just be aware of your surroundings. Always make sure the kids are safe. And please enjoy the rest of your night, guys. Until All in Neckline Lifestyle. But I really wanted to share this for you for an awareness as my disclaimer, only for educational purposes and awareness that the cartels are not only at the borders, but they are in Georgia that has no borders. Wow. Oh, let's not forget Texas, but we know Texas has a border, but it comes down to Georgia. Okay. Okay, guys, thank you and enjoy the rest of your night. All in a Clown Lifestyle. Thanks, guys, in the chat for joining me.